It's time for TNT. I get one more shot at it. We'll see if we can get it right this time. We'll talk about the drama with GT Sapphire. Apple seems to have settled with them. Phillip ElmerDewitt will explain it. Plus, the iPad Air 2 hits stores in many cases today. Should you buy it? We've got the experts coming up on TNT.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, October 22nd, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, or other Apple product is worth at Gazelle.com. Tech News Today, that's the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome, I'm Leo Laporte, filling in for Mike Elgin. He has the week off. He'll be back on Monday. Our top story, of course, is a strong earning result from Yahoo. CEO Marissa Mayer reported yesterday the company beat the street with sales of over $1 billion, 1% growth. A significant portion of the revenue came from mobile. Mayer said, we've invested deeply in mobile. We're seeing those investments pay off. In an earning webcast yesterday afternoon, she had this to say.
We achieved this revenue growth through strong momentum in our new areas of investment: mobile, social, native, and video, despite industry headwinds in some of our large legacy businesses. Our results were outside and above the top of our guidance range by $34 million on revenue ex-TAC and $48 million on GAAP revenue.
A lot of analysts thought that a lot of the result, the positive result, came from Yahoo's early investment by Jerry Yang in Alibaba, the Chinese search engine, which had a fantastic IPO in the U.S. Last month. $12 billion in cash. That's a big war chest, but it remains to be seen whether those results will satisfy the activist Yahoo investors, some of whom were calling for a merger with AOL and other moves. We will see what happens with Yahoo, but I think Marissa Mayer can be credited at least with a little bit of a turnaround for that legendary company. Now an update on the soap opera developing between Apple and its Sapphire partner, GT Advanced Technologies. You may remember Apple promised last year to Advanced GT $578 million to develop a Sapphire plant in Mesa, Arizona. But last month when Apple introduced its phones, no Sapphire, at least not on the screens. Shortly thereafter, GT Advanced closed the plant and filed Chapter 11. Apple has filed a claim saying the company is owed $439 million. Yesterday, GT announced it had reached a settlement with Apple that it described as a, quote, amicable parting of the ways, end quote. GT will sell off the 2036 Sapphire furnaces in Mesa, Arizona, and use the proceeds to settle its debt with Apple. As part of the agreement, documents that would have explained this somewhat mysterious relationship between the two companies will be sealed. This did not sit well with attorneys for the Wall Street Journal in the state of New Hampshire, who complained that the public has a right to know why hundreds of workers are being laid off and why creditors are being asked to accept pennies on the dollar. The judge has not yet approved the settlement or the disposition of the documents. Phillip ElmerDewitt is here from Fortune.com, longtime Apple watcher. It's great to have you on the show, Phillip.
Glad to be here. Glad to be invited.
This is a great story. It's one of those mystery stories that people wonder what went on. Do you have any sense of what happened here? And more importantly, perhaps who was at fault?
Well, you know, the document that would tell us is under seal, and it's an affidavit by the COO of the Chief Operating Officer of GT, and apparently he laid it all out, you know, blow by blow, in a way that Apple was just determined that it was never going to get public. And the judge in the case, it came up last week. Apple filed its objection and said the objection had to be under seal. And then the judge read the document in question and said he really was having trouble finding anything that was so damaging that it would have to be kept secret. So I think that's probably what brought the deal about. That's my theory, is that Apple was facing a judge that was about to say, let it all hang out. So I was in court yesterday, and they kept us waiting all day There was a lot of paper shuffling back and forth. They said it would be ready in an hour, and then it was another 2 hours, and then it was 3 hours, and then finally at 4:30, they were about to close the courthouse. They announced that they had a deal, the one you described, where GT gets to sell off those 2,000 plus furnaces, and whatever they can get for them, Apple will take as settlement, some percentage of the revenue Apple will take as a deal. Anyway, so what went wrong? We won't know until someone leaks that document. Apple has asked for all the electronic copies to be destroyed, all the paper copies to be destroyed. It was quite elaborate, the precautions they were taking. My theory is that, or, I picked this up, other people's theory, that Apple was going to had a thought of using them maybe in the high end, not just in the lenses of the cameras, not just in the watches, but in the higher end of the iPhone 6s. And the Japanese suppliers who were there at the hearing and who'd provided some equipment for these furnaces said that there was no way that the watches would have absorbed as much silicon as sapphire as they were making. Had to be for an iPhone. Apple denies that, or steers you away from that, but that seems to be what happened. So they made the glass, the sapphire. It wasn't good enough, probably, for it didn't meet the specs that Apple had in mind. It wasn't shatterproof enough, or it wasn't clear enough, or something. Apple rejected it, refused to give them the last part of the loan, and the GT was burning $1.5 million a day running this plant, making stuff that Apple had no use for. So it was just untenable, and they, that's why it sent them into bankruptcy. They have a whole other business making these furnaces that's doing fine, but they got into the sapphire production business for Apple. They were actually making the stuff, and it turned out they couldn't make it good enough. The whole thing, the deal fell apart, and Apple, you got the sense from Apple that they bent over backwards trying to make it work with GT, but the stuff just wasn't good enough, and it came to a head, and they finally settled it last night.
Of course, Apple has an incredible penchant for security. You could see why Apple might want to keep these documents sealed, especially since one leak, one little tidbit we learned from the case is that Apple charges $50 million per violation of secrecy to its suppliers, that the supplier, like GT, agreed to pay $50 million if anything of this leaked out.
Yeah, that's the first time we actually got a price figure on the NDA. You always wondered, well, how did Apple keep these secrets? Well, there's your answer.
Now we know. Yeah. You
sign an NDA, and if you break it, you get slapped with $50 million in damages. That brought up an interesting issue with Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal, because the Wall Street Journal got kicked out of the courtroom when this document came up that Apple's been trying to keep secret. And so the Dow Jones lawyers filed, they asked the judge to open it up. They said, this is really, there's no reason to keep this secret. What their petition is the word, basically brings to a head is the question of, does the NDA trump the right of the creditors to know what happened to their money? They're owed millions of dollars. They're about to get paid pennies on the dollar, and the debtor is now telling them what went wrong.
Yeah.
And so we've dealt with Apple NDAs a lot. Leo, you must have seen hundreds of. You've heard about hundreds.
I
of
refuse them, but yes, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we know how they work, as you get sent to the poorhouse.
I don't think they fine journalists $50 million, however. They just get mad at them.
Well, no, they tried to shut down the
shut
block.
them down,
Anyway, so that's as much as I know.
Yeah. Is the judge, you think the judge is inclined to unseal these documents and that we may end up finding out what happened?
He certainly sounded that way. A lot of bankruptcy judges apparently do honor these kinds of secret agreements. And he said he was not one of those guys. He philosophically was against it. He acknowledges that Apple might want to keep certain prices secret. He's willing to cross out some numbers, but he just didn't see the argument for this. And there were a lot of parties there, not just the Wall Street Journal, but the creditors and the state of New Hampshire, for that matter, where this company is located, who have an interest in seeing the document. So it'll be a really interesting thing. I forget exactly when the hearing is. I think it's on the 21st. We'll
watch with interest. Thank you, Phillip.
Thank you.
Phillip ElmerDewitt is a senior editor, of course, at Fortune.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Phillip ED and read his writings at Fortune.com/PED. Thank you, Phillip. Take care.
Thank you.
Coming up in just a bit, Tim Cook, Mr. Cook, goes to China. But first, a word from Gazelle. If you're looking at a new iPad, they're about to be out. In fact, we're going to have a look from Nilay Patel of The Verge and Eric Slivka of Mac Rumors in just a little bit at what to expect with the new iPads. Maybe you're starting to think, I wonder if I should sell this old iPad, get some cash in my pocket. The iPhone. Maybe you're ready for the Surface 3 and you got a Surface 2, or you're looking at the Note 9 and you want to get rid of your, the Nexus 9. You're ready to get rid of your Galaxy Note. This is the place to go, Gazelle.com. You can get a quote for 30 days locked in. You don't have to do anything for the first 30 days. That means you've got plenty of time to get the device, the item, the iPad or the tablet or the phone, transfer your data over, get it all up and working, and then pull the trigger. Look at that. A Surface Pro 2, $581. I'll take it.
And just good condition, and not even like excellent. You know,
we sent an iPhone 5, an iPhone 4 to Gazelle. They had quoted us $30. They pay the shipping, They send you the box, you put it in the box. When they got it, they said it's $120. Awesome. Because it had more, I think it had more memory than we thought or something. But I've never heard of a company doing that. They get $90 out of their pocket, but that's how good they are. I love Gazelle, and I know you will too. Go to Gazelle.com, get a quote. You've got 30 days. You can get it cash, get a check, a PayPal credit, or they'll bump it 5% if you take an Amazon gift card. And since I buy everything on Amazon, we always do that. GAZELLE.com. Sell your gadgets the fast and easy way. Look at that at Gazelle.com. Monday, I told you that the Great Firewall of China appeared to be hijacking iCloud logins from the country, redirecting them to a spoof page designed to gather users' iCloud credentials. Apple's public response to the allegations by watchdog group GreatFire.org was to publish an informational page that, oddly enough, didn't even mention China, but did show users how to tell if their iCloud login had been hijacked. According to GreatFire, Apple also began rerouting user data on Tuesday to circumvent the man-in-the-middle attack. Chinese government, of course, vigorously denied any involvement, but today we learned that Apple CEO Tim Cook has flown to China and is meeting, as we speak, with a high government official in Beijing. The official Chinese news agency Xinhua said that Cook and Chinese Vice Premier Ma Kai exchanged views on, quote, protection of users' information, as well as, quote, strengthening cooperation in the communication field. I'd love to be a fly on the wall at that meeting. 2 new iPads announced last week. They're shipping out to users, I think, soon, maybe this week. But the major Apple reviewers have already received theirs, and their reviews began hitting the street yesterday. Joining us now from New York, Nilay Patel. He's editor-in-chief of The Verge. Hi, Nilay.
Hey, how's it going?
Great to see you. And from Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, MacRumors.com editor-in-chief Eric Slivka. Good to have you.
How you doing?
Great to have you both. Nilay, you've got one in front of you.
I do.
You're one of the chosen.
Indeed I am.
The chosen people.
That's who I'm always, yeah.
Eric and I could just look on with interest. Although Eric reported on Mac Rumors, and this happens every time a new device comes out from anybody, that the Geekbench website is recording benchmarks now already from the Air 2. Is that right, Eric?
Well, I think if you read the reviews, all of us,
Nilay.
all the reviewers ran Geekbench.
Yeah, that's the first thing you did, right?
Yeah, it's just the first thing you do when you run the reviews.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that at least whatever first group of people who had the thing were running benchmarks on it.
And Eric, those numbers are pretty good.
Yeah, I mean they came out. We got out some data started showing up a couple days ago, and then on Geekbench yesterday stuff showed up, and we're showing some really good numbers, improvements of up to 55% over the iPhone 6 even, which just came out. So the A6 is a whole lot better. And over the iPad Air, it looks like a huge improvement. And Nilay can tell you a lot more about that, I'm sure, since he's had one in his hand. But it seems like Apple went all out with this A8X, which is a little surprising. considering that it's the same display resolution and everything. So it'll be interesting to see what developers can do with it.
Apple never talks about RAM in these devices. We always have to wait for somebody like iFixit to tear them down or Geekbench to report it. Last iPad had 1 gig of RAM. Apparently this one has 2 gigs. That could also impact it, couldn't it, Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been kind of one of the complaints from people. The big thing is with Safari tabs reloading when you come back to the app, and people want those to be able to persist, and RAM is something that has to do with that. And so people were hoping to see 2 gigabytes of RAM in the iPhone 6, and that didn't happen. But then we started getting some part evidence that was leaking out showing that the iPad Air 2 would actually have 2 gigabytes, and that's shown to be true. So people should really enjoy that.
Nilay, can you see the difference when you use the Air 2?
Sort of. It's really fast, right? So it is indeed faster. It has a much faster processor. It's definitely faster than my Air. And this point about Safari tabs is true. That's basically where you see it when you're browsing the web. But the reality is that Apple hasn't done anything to meaningfully change iOS 8 from iOS 7 on the iPad. Obviously, there's extensions and handoff.
Well, externally, yeah. But you mean internally in terms of speed?
I mean, look, in terms of speed, this thing is as fast as my 2011 MacBook Air, right? And that's
it's
nice. True. But if you were to tell me I could only have one computer and my choice was a 2011 MacBook Air or an iPad Air 2, I would pick the MacBook every day of the week. And that is basically Apple's problem. They are building the world's best hardware. There's no question this is the best iPad ever made. The thing is so thin, it's like magic. It's basically just a screen. It's hard to believe when you hold the original iPad that in just a little under 5 years, they've gotten to this place with the product. But the software is totally stagnated, and they haven't answered it. The key question for the entire tablet market has always been, why do I need this and a phone and a laptop? And Apple used to have an answer for that. It used to be that, this will take up the place of the primary computer in your life. But as phones have gotten bigger and laptops have gotten better at connecting to phones, and people have understood the value of the laptop in relationship to their phone, the tablet's getting squeezed. And the iPad Air 2 is a beautiful piece of hardware. There's nobody making anything like it. Certainly not anything with the amount of power that it has. But the software is absolutely just in need of some differentiation and some sort of renewed purpose in the ecosystem of devices that fill your life.
Well, Apple also has a problem. I mean, you can talk about benchmarks and how much faster it is, but the real issue is nobody's complaining that it's not fast enough if they have a recent iPad, maybe the Air or the iPad 4. Nobody's saying, oh, it's too thick. It's only 1 millimeter thinner. Oh, it's too heavy. It's only an ounce lighter. So there's not a lot of impetus to buy a new one.
And no one, the persistent criticisms aren't being addressed. So the persistent criticism is, I want to run 2 apps at once, right? I want to do I want to work the way that I work on my laptop and my tablet. Apple has, the rumors are out there that they're thinking about it and they're working on it, but this product doesn't reflect that. I think lots of people have a tablet that just sits around their living room or sits around their kitchen, but it doesn't. There's nothing about iOS that recognizes the fact that tablets have multiple users, right? That I might use it, my wife might use it, or if you have kids, lots of kids like share iPads in their house. They watch lots of streaming video on it. None of that is reflected in iOS. So the disconnect between the way people want to use tablets and where they fit into our homes and lives and what the software on the iPad is ready and willing to do is pretty large at this point. And if you look at sort of the Nexus 9, it does have multiple users. It does have guest mode. Amazon, the Fire series is really popular with families with kids. It has features designed to make giving a tablet to kids easier. It's funny, Ben Popper, our business editor here at The Verge, this morning said the iPad 1 passes the dad test because you can just like throw it on the ground and spill juice all over it. And that's how people are thinking about tablets. They're thinking about them as computers they share with their families and with other people. They're not necessarily thinking about them as replacements for their laptops. And if you look at Apple's Mac sales, they're becoming a dominant PC vendor, and Mac sales are going up while iPad sales are down to flat. And I think they have to figure out where this device really fits into to everyone's life.
It's interesting because Amazon does sell a Kindle Fire tablet with a rubber case and a guarantee that they'll replace it even if the kid breaks it by throwing it across the room.
For 2 years.
For 2 years.
Right.
I think they understand the market.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's a market for basically, there are many things a tablet is, and one of them is a television, right? Another one is a game console. And these are areas where Apple has had lots of ideas about how these things should work, how television should work, how video games should work, but they've never put their horsepower behind those segments really directly. And I think that's a big space for the iPad. And I think if they can figure out a way to actually start taking away or chipping away at the things you do on a Mac and then chipping away at the things you might want to do on a TV, the iPad has a bright future in front of it. It is overwhelmingly the leader in the space, right? If you talk to Apple, what they will tell you is the market's young, no one is close to us at all, and we're waiting to see what people actually do with this before we start placing our bets. The problem is that what people are doing with them is they're buying an iPad and holding on to it for 4 to 5 years. If Apple wants to keep their growth up and fend off their nascent competitors, they actually have to start doing some work.
Let me ask Eric, because people like us at Twit and people who read Mac rumors we're geeks, let's face it, and we look at numbers, we look at benchmarks, we look at how much RAM, and perhaps look a little bit less at how it's being used. Do you agree with Nilay that while the new iPad kills in specs, it's not enough for real users?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen rumors of the side-by-side multitasking that might have been coming to the iPad Air.
That's right. That was a rumor, wasn't it? Yeah.
But now we're looking at there's rumors of an even larger iPad, a 12.9 inch. It's not entirely clear when that's going to come and how it's going to be positioned. But I think that also opens up a whole other set of potential use cases, and that's a great place where the side-by-side would come in handy. And like doing the different user accounts where you can have multiple people using the tablet, definitely things that are sorely needed on the iPad.
But the subtext of what Nilay is saying really is that while Apple's the market leader, they should be hearing the thundering herd behind them and strong competition from Samsung, from Google, from Microsoft, from Amazon, all of whom are making tablets that do more. Would you agree, Eric?
Yeah, I would. I mean, iPad is, and Apple has kind of always, marched to their own drummer. And they haven't allowed, for the most part, competitors to pressure them into things, and they wait until things are ready before they launch them. But at some point, the iPad's been around for so long. It's been over 4 years now, and things like it seems like user accounts seem like a really obvious thing that they should be doing. When I look at the usage and how people are sharing iPads amongst family members and friends, and I have 2 kids and my wife, and we all use the iPads, and we have several different ones, but we're always sharing the ones that we do have, and it would be great if we could do something like that where we could just have different accounts.
Right, and if you think about Touch ID on the iPad, what is it good for? It makes it easier to unlock. That's great, but iPads kind of stay in the house a lot, so it's not
an Apple Pay thing. Well, I guess it's Apple Pay online.
Yeah, Apple Pay online. So there's 2 kind of use cases that aren't as important for having a fingerprint scanner on your phone, right? A phone travels the world with you. You probably want to lock it down. And my iPads generally just stay at home. But multiple user accounts, these things have your fingerprint in them. It makes it trivial to switch between people on these devices, and they haven't taken that obvious next step.
Yeah. Just like the Xbox One recognizes me when I sit down and say, "Hi, Leo." And when Michael sits down and says, "Hi, Michael," and it knows the difference just from face recognition. That's awesome.
And it's remarkably convenient. And I think that's how you build sort of a culture around security. You make it really easy and transparent for people to use the same device in secure spaces.
Now, I have to point out, Nilay, you said magical, not revolutionary, but you also gave it a pretty strong 9.3 score.
I did. We talked about it a lot. So the magical, not revolutionary is when you get this thing in your hand, it is remarkable how thin it is. There's no, Apple's
Nilay, it's only 1 millimeter thinner.
But it's absolutely noticeable, and they finally took that step to make the screen laminated, and it actually makes a difference.
That does make a difference, yeah.
Their hardware engineering prowess is not to be doubted. And then the score, they did the right things in terms of iterative improvement. So it's cheaper at the highest storage tier, and if you get the LTE, there's no more 32 gig model, it's just 64. So for less money, you kind of get more, and it's a better product than last year. It's impossible to not basically give it the same score if you think it's the best tablet on the market. And I do. I think overall, the overwhelming strength of the iPad app ecosystem, Apple's hardware advantage, and being plugged into the larger, if you have a Mac, being plugged into the larger ecosystem of iOS and OS 10, that's a big deal. And nobody else has quite captured all that yet. So the score is high because I think if you're going to buy a tablet, you should probably buy this one. But if you are going to be the market leader and you're going to introduce a product in 2010 by having Steve Jobs call it magical and revolutionary, we're going to hold you to a higher curve in terms of the year-over-year improvement.
Eric, you and I are not in the tier of the elite like David Pogue, Walt Mossberg, Nilay Patel, who got sent one of these devices. Are you going to buy one?
I'm probably going to. Looks like they're getting into stores, at least some Apple retail stores today. I didn't pre-order one. I was kind of waiting to see what things were looking like. But, it's got some impressive improvements. We saw the body redesign after only a year. Usually Apple sticks with a body design for a year or two. We got the thinner iPad Air last year, and now we're even thinner with the iPad Air 2. So I think that's a big appeal. I'll probably be getting one.
I'm gonna stand back and let the others spend their money this time around. Thank you, Eric Slivka, editor-in-chief at MacRumors.com. He's on Twitter at ESLIVKA. Great to talk to you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Nilay Patel, good to have you back, editor-in-chief of TheVerge.com, at Reckless on Twitter. Always a pleasure.
Yep, good. Thanks for having me on.
Take care, Nilay. Bye-bye.
Yep.
In other news today, the Federal Trade Commission has selected independent privacy researcher Ashkan Soltani to be its new chief technologist. Soltani contributed to the Washington Post's Pulitzer Prize-winning reporting on the Edward Snowden revelations and is widely regarded as an excellent advocate for consumer privacy. Good on you, FTC. The Pew Research Center says in its survey of 2,849 Americans, more than 40% say they have been harassed online. 27% say they've been called offensive names. 22% say someone tried to purposely embarrass them. And 8% of users say they've either been stalked or physically threatened. In more than half the cases, users are targeted by someone they don't know. And 73% say they have seen others harassed online. But here's something to cheer you up a little bit after that bad news. You can now watch all 552 episodes of The Simpsons on your mobile device. As promised, the FX Now app, available on Android, iOS, you can get it on Windows 8 and 7 too, and Xbox, and Samsung Smart TVs, now features all 25 seasons of The Simpsons in the Simpsons World section. I watched one this morning. It was awesome.
Of course it was.
Of course.
How many days is that if you watch every episode
in
a row?
It was 2 weeks when they did the marathon.
So you can do that for the rest of your life, or at least for as long as this deal is struck.
You don't have to have a mobile device, by the way. They are also on the web at simpsonsworld.com. The good news is fans can watch full episodes. You'll see schedules of future marathons, and you can get behind-the-scenes tidbits. And yes, of course, you can buy Simpsons merchandise. The bad news is you'll have to prove you have a subscription to FX on television through your satellite or cable provider. Fortunately, most providers do allow this, with one big exception, not Verizon Fios. Darn you, Verizon! That's the tech news today. You'll find TNT at twit.tv/TNT and on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Feedly, or in your favorite podcatcher. Follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV. Accept no substitutes. We've also got a great Google Plus community. Your thoughts and opinions appreciated at TNT at twit.tv. A big thanks to Jason Howell, to Tanya Hall, and to Karsten Bondi, who made these last 3 days so much easier. Sarah Lane will be filling in for Mike tomorrow and Friday. I'm Leo Laporte, and Mike will be back in the saddle next week. See you later on TNT. Bye-bye.